How you interview for a job will determine whether or not you get hired.
Boy, I like to think that I haven't already decided, but I've already at least started to form an opinion that's negative.
What caused this businessman to form a negative opinion? Clothing. What will you wear to your next job interview? This may seem like a shallow question, but as I interviewed experts, I realized it's definitely a very important thing to consider. Before you even open your mouth for the first time, you will have begun your first impression with the way you visually present yourself. In today's video, we'll sit down with 3 experts to discuss how to prepare for an interview. From planning what to wear to maintaining your rituals on the day of the interview, let's make sure you have the best interview possible. For my non-native English students, there's also a brief lesson at the end on how to ask for the bathroom. The first thing I want to talk about is your outfit. I asked 2 people who've done a lot of hiring, and they both said the way you present yourself, which includes your outfit, matters a lot. In fact, the wrong outfit might prevent you from getting the job, even before you start the interview. First impressions matter. I asked a local businessman, Steve, who does a lot of hiring for his business, how far into an interview he knows if he'll consider hiring someone. Listen to what he said. How long into an interview with somebody do you feel like you start to have a sense of, yes, I will go forward with this person?
Oh boy, I would say it's probably as quick as maybe 5 minutes. And sometimes it's even, that opinion has formed even before. It can be as early as before you've even gotten into the room. It could be in the foyer, in the hallway where you're meeting that person. I hate to admit that, but yeah, it can be really quick and really early.
So you have literally called someone in for an interview, met them as they walked in the door, and already decided there's something about this person that's not going to work out.
Boy, I like to think that I haven't already decided, but I've already at least started to form an opinion that's negative.
And what led to that?
It's terrible to say, but I'd say appearance is a huge first impression. If I have somebody that's coming into an interview and they're wearing a hoodie and sneakers, I'm forming a negative opinion of them, that they haven't prepared and that they don't care about what impression they're going to be giving in my office, in my environment.
What you wear gives an impression of how much you care about and have prepared for this interview. If you've been offered an interview, that means they already like you, but you can be sure you're not the only one being interviewed for that position. The minute someone sees you, what you're wearing and your body language is communicating for you. Make sure those things are saying what you want them to say. We'll get into body language later in this course, but first let's go a little deeper on outfit. So, how do you know how dressy to go in an interview? Let's hear Steve's advice.
We don't walk around in jeans and a t-shirt or have that extremely laid-back feel to our organization. I think it's possible, that could be fine in some organizations, but in ours, our community would not see that as being a professional appearance. And so maybe that part of that is knowing where you're interviewing and what that culture is like. And that could be as simple as asking someone when you're setting up that interview, when that person is setting up the interview, ask them that question. What's your dress code like? So you can get a good idea of what that is.
Just ask. When someone contacts you to set up the interview, ask them, what's the dress code for your organization? The person you're communicating with at this point will likely be impressed that you're researching, trying to know the organization and what's expected. And if you're ever not sure, it's better to err on the side of being slightly more dressy than underdressed. You might feel like you want to wear something really memorable. They're interviewing lots of people, right? You want them to remember you, but not for what you wore. If they're remembering what you wore, they might not be remembering what stands out about you as an employee. And that's what we want them to be thinking about as they're making their decisions. I spoke with the career advisor, Laura, who works at a prestigious college here in the US. Listen to what she had to say. What advice do you give students who are going to an interview about clothing choice and appearance and that kind of thing?
The first thing I say is to not wear anything that draws too much attention to you. You want the employer to be focused on what you're saying and the connection that you're making and not on what you're wearing. Also, not on a scent that's too strong or a hair that's out of place. So you just want to look at yourself in the mirror before you go and say, do I look, slightly boring, honestly, because you're wanting them to focus on what you're saying. And so that's one thing, is to be thinking that you don't want anything to be distracting.
I also spoke with a woman, Cindy, who's worked as an executive director for a nonprofit in New York City. She's literally interviewed hundreds of people, and she agrees. Keep your clothing simple.
Simple. I wouldn't wear fancy anything. I would keep the distractions minimal. If you normally wear earrings, I think it's fine to wear earrings. If you don't, I wouldn't add anything you don't normally wear.
Okay.
So that there's nothing that you don't feel sort of different from how you normally feel. I think that helps people feel comfortable in their skin.
She also makes a good point. You don't know what the seating situation will be in an interview, so you'll want to think about that as you're choosing your outfit.
But I would wear something that you feel comfortable in, like ahead of time sitting. If you're wearing a very short skirt, that can be super awkward. Depending on where you're interviewing. So for example, I used to do a lot of interviews in my office, and I had a couch in my office. So if somebody sat down into the couch, it made it a very hard position now I usually would sit on the couch because it was sort of awkward, but like it could make it a really awkward place to sit if you didn't have on clothes that covered your legs enough. And then that would be something that was distracting to you and possibly to the interviewer for the interview.
Okay.
Same thing with anything that's low cut. If you're sitting slightly below somebody, like you just don't know what the situation's going to be, so you want to be as comfortable in the clothes that you're wearing as you can, and know that like however you might be sitting, you're going to be covered and feel comfortable.
Yeah. So if you don't have an outfit that's very clean, simple, dressy, that you feel comfortable in, it's worth investing in one as you start your job interview process. Plan it ahead. Wear it a few times. Don't let your job interview be the very first time you wear something new. Make sure you know that you're comfortable in it. You know what? You look amazing in that outfit. Now let's talk about ritual. Let me tell you a little personal story. My husband and I were set up by a mutual friend. The first date went pretty well, so I was kind of nervous for the second date. I was meeting him for brunch in the morning, and before that, I met with a friend for coffee. I don't drink coffee, but for some reason that morning I ordered it. And I was so jittery and had such a stomachache that I couldn't eat brunch at all on our date. It was awkward because I had significantly changed my ritual. When we're nervous, we can make weird decisions without thinking them through. This can definitely happen when you're preparing for something as major as a job interview. Let's listen to Laura's advice. Do you have any advice for people about what to do the night before an interview and then maybe like 15 minutes before the interview as far as preparing and feeling relaxed?
The night before the interview, you should not do anything different than you would normally do.
Okay.
So if you are normally going to bed at 10 p.m., go to bed at 10 p.m. Try not to cram your studying or your research into that very last night. You should be done with your preparations by the night before so that you can just relax, you can eat a nice dinner, you can go to bed on time. And then the next morning, drink the same amount of coffee. If you normally eat breakfast, eat breakfast. If you don't. Just to kind of try to keep the routine and so that nothing's out of order and you feel a little off. And then 15 minutes before the interview, you should already be there. So give yourself plenty of time. You don't want to be late. That's the first point against you if you show up at an interview late. And then once you're there, I always, personally, I go to the bathroom and just take a moment to relax in there. And just, make sure that nothing is weird about my hair, that no collars are turned under. Just giving myself a once-over and taking some time to breathe without anyone watching me.
Yeah.
And then going out into the waiting room or wherever you're waiting for the employer, taking some deep breaths and trying as much as possible from your belly instead of your chest, because we can have really shallow breathing through our chest. But if you're taking it in through your belly and breathing out, it's amazing what a few deep breaths can do for you.
So take a calming, deep breath and prepare your body for that interview. We've just talked about preparing yourself, but it's also really important to prepare for connection with your organization and the person you're interviewing with. In the next 2 videos, we'll talk about how to do this by proper research, mock interviews, and thinking about your body language. The person interviewing you will know if you've prepared the right way or not, so make sure you have. For my non-native students, we're going to get to your English lesson in just a minute. If you haven't already, be sure to click the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. I make new videos on the English language and American culture every Tuesday and have over 600 videos on my channel to date focusing on listening comprehension and accent reduction. While you're waiting for next week's video, a great next step would be to check out this Get Started playlist. And now the English lesson. Let's talk about the bathroom. I've noticed this can be confusing for some because there's no bath in bathrooms in public spaces. A term that might be more familiar to you is the toilet. Laura talks about going to the bathroom before an interview to give yourself one final check in the mirror and to have just a moment to focus before the interview starts.
I always, personally, I go to the bathroom and just take a moment to relax in there. And just, make sure that nothing is weird about my hair, that no collars are turned under, just giving myself a once-over and taking some time to breathe without anyone watching me.
She goes to the bathroom, the room with a bath. No, there's no bath, it's just a toilet and a sink. But even though toilet is a common term elsewhere, native speakers in the US don't use it. We much prefer to say bathroom or restroom. Either one of these is great, common, natural. If you say toilet, it's a little odd here in the US. So if you walk in for an interview early and you have a little time to collect yourself, you can ask, "Excuse me, could you tell me where the bathroom is?" Or, "Could you tell me where the restroom is?" That's a wonderful and polite way to ask. That's it, and thanks so much for using Rachel's English. If you want to see my absolute latest video, click here. If you're new to the channel, check out this Where to Start playlist. Click here to subscribe. I make new videos on American English every Tuesday. To be sure we can keep in touch, click here to sign up for my newsletter. You'll get free lessons in your inbox every week.